Welcome to the first lecture of our course on organizational behavior. In this session, we will explore the very foundation of how people function within structured environments. Why do some companies thrive while others fail, despite having similar resources? The answer often lies in the human elements, how individuals and groups interact within a system. Today, we begin our journey into understanding the complexity, the structure, and the behavioral dynamics that define modern organization. Before we dive into the details, let us establish what aim to achieve by the end of this lecture. First, we will define the concept of an organization is moving from a general idea to a technical understanding. Second, we will explain the core concepts and additional dimensions that make an organization functional, such as division of labor and authority. Third, we will discuss the importance of structure in achieving efficiency and morale. Fourth, we will identify the characteristics of a sound organization. And finally, we will formally introduce the field of organizational behavior, exploring its nature, scope, and critical goals, describing, understanding, predicting, and controlling human behavior in the workplace. Let's start with the most basic question. What is an organization? At its simplest, an organization is a structured group of individuals working together with coordinated efforts and resources to achieve common goals. However, it is more than just a collection of individuals. It is a system. Think about it. Can a random crowd at a bus stop be called an organization? The answer is no. While they are a group, they lack a shared goal and a coordinated structure. An organization requires a coordination. It combines human efforts, specialized skills, and physical resources with a defined system of roles and responsibilities. It exists because certain goals and are simply too large or too complex for one person to achieve alone. By uniting, we transform individual limitations into collective strength. To understand an organization, we must view it through two different lenses. First, it is a social entity. This is the human side, where people interact from friendship, build a relationship, and sometimes experience conflicts. It is a living, breathing community. Second is a structural mechanism. This is the technical side, where tasks are divided, authority is mapped out, and processes are controlled to ensure efficiency. Transitions between these two sides are constant. A manager might use the structural mechanism to assign a task, but they must use the social entity to motivate the employee to do it well. Four core concepts that serves as the pillars of any organization. The first is the social system. An organization is composed of individuals and groups who interact regularly. These interactions are both formal, defined by your job title, and informal, defined by your personal networks and workplace culture. Shared norms and values influence how we behave, how we solve problems, and how we treat one another. The second pillar is structure. This provides the formal framework. It clarifies who does what, who reports to whom, and how decisions are made. Whether it is a tall hierarchy or flat startup model, the structure ensures accountability. Without a clear structure, coordination becomes impossible and efforts are wasted. The third core concept is the process. Organizing is not a one time event, it is a continuous managerial activity. As the world changes, the way we align our resources and efforts must also change. This process ensures that everyone stays aligned with the mission. Finally, we have the goal-oriented nature of organizations. Every organization is established with a purpose. whether that is generating profit, providing education, or offering social welfare. Goals provide directions. They act as a compass for the team and a benchmark for success. When a group loses sight of its goal, it loses its reason for existence. So let's recap. Let's see what we have seen that an organization is both a social and a structural system designed to achieve goals through ongoing processes. It is a deliberate arrangement of people and resources. Moving deeper, we must look at the dimensions that make an organization efficient. The first is the division of labor. We don't expect one person to build an entire car. Instead, we divide the work into smaller tasks assigned to specialists. This specialization increases quality and speed. However, once you divide the work, you must bring it back together. This is coordination and integration because tasks are interdependent. Different departments must work in harmony. Think of a symphony orchestra. Every musician plays a different part, but they must be perfectly coordinated to create music rather than noise. Effective coordination prevents the duplication of work and reduces internal conflicts. Another critical dimension is the balance between authority and responsibility. Authority is the right to make decisions. Responsibility is the obligation to perform. For an organization to function, these two must be balanced. If you have responsibility without authority, you are powerless to act. If you have authority without responsibility, you may become reckless. Furthermore, communication acts as the backbone of the organization. It allows information, feedback, and ideas to flow. Without it, the organization becomes blind and deaf to its own operations. Finally, we have adaptability and continuity. Organizations exist in the dynamic world. They must adapt to new technology and mark shifts while maintaining continuity through established policies. How does an organization stay the same while constantly changing? It does so by preserving its core values while updating its methods. Why does the act of organizing it matters so much? First, it provides clear structure and responsibilities. When employees know exactly what is expected, confusion disappears and productivity rises. It allows for effective delegation, ensuring that no two peoples are accidentally doing the same job. Second, it leads to the efficient use of resources. Proper allocation prevents waste. By focusing human effort and financial capital on specific, non overlapping tasks, companies can maximize their impact. The importance of organization also extended to communication. A clear structure defines the channels through which information travels. It tells you exactly what to contact for help or information, reducing the risk of lost in translation errors. Furthermore, organization increases accountability. When reporting lines are transparent, it is easy to monitor progress and correct errors. This leads to higher quality work completed on time. Finally, it boosts performance and morale. Employees feel valued when they have a clear sense of how their job contributes to the bigger picture. What distinguishes a good or sound organization from a mediocre one? There are several key characteristics. First is the realization of objectives. A sound organization is built specifically as a tool to achieve its ends, with departments and units designed for that purpose. Second is the logical grouping of functions. Jobs and sub-jobs must be grouped so that coordination happens without delay. Third is reasonable span of control. A single manager cannot effectively oversee 50 people. Usually, the ideal number of direct reporters is small, perhaps 5 or 6, to ensure quality supervision. Fourth is the clear-cut allocation of duties. Every executive must know their exact scope of activities. Ambiguity is the enemy of a sound organization. A sound organization must also focus on the promotion of employee satisfaction. Since men works in group, the success of the system depends on how much satisfaction it provides to the individuals within it. It must also ensure the fullest utilization of manpower, making sure people's talent are not wasted. Seventh, it must provide for provision of growth and expansion. A rigid organization will break when it grows. An ideal structure allows for new departments and changes as the business evolves. Finally, there must be coordination and cooperation. There should be an active link between various departments so that the left hand always knows that the right hand is doing. Ninth is the principle of unity of command. No employee should report to more than one supervisor. Why is this important? Because receiving conflicting orders from two different bosses leads to chaos and conflict. Tenth is an effective system of communication that is clear and free of ambiguity at every level. 11th, high moral. In a sound organization, workers possess energy, enthusiasm, and sincerity. Finally, we have flexibility and adaptability. The organization must be able to modify its size or technology conveniently. So, let's look on repeat mode. A sound organization is one that balance clear authority and unity of command with flexibility, high moral, and the efficient use of its people. Now that we understand what an organization is, let us turn to the field that studies them, organizational behavior. Organizational behavior is an academic discipline that investigates the impact that individuals, groups, and structure have on behavior within an organization. According to Fred Luthans, describes it as a being concerned with the understanding, predicting, and control of human behavior. In the past, management was often seen as just giving orders, but today we recognize that to make an organization effective, we must understand the psychology of the people within it. The study of organizational behavior is more important today than ever before because the workplace is changing. We are seeing the flatter organizational structure. The old command and control style is being replaced by flatter mode, collaborative model. We have a workforce with different expectations. Modern employees want meaning, not just paycheck. Furthermore, the advancement of information technology has changed now. We communicate. There is an increasing focus on empowerment and teamwork, where employees are given the power to make decisions. Finally, there are a major concern for work-life balance. OB helps managers to navigate these changes to create a productive and healthy work environment. To deepen our understanding, let's look at how experts define OV. According to Chester Bernard, organizations as systems of cooperative activities that rely heavily on personal relationship. Pigou defined organizational behavior as the study of structure, functioning, and behaviors of group, and individuals. Stephen Robbins provides a very practical definition: a systematic study of the actions and attitudes that people exhibit within organizations. When we combine these views, we see that organizational behavior is the application of knowledge about human behavior as it relates to others, elements like technology, structure, and the social system. It is not just common it is not just common sense, it is a systematic evidence based on field of study. What is the nature of OV? First, it is an interdisciplinary approach. It doesn't exist in the vacuum. It integrates knowledge from psychology to understand individuals, sociology to understand groups, and anthropology to understand culture. It even borrows from economics and political science. Second, it is an applied science. Organizational behavior is not just about theory, it is about solving real world problems. The goal is to apply research to make organizations function more effectively. It is the human side of management. While traditional management might focus on production schedules, organizational behavior focuses on the conceptual and human dimensions that make those schedules possible. Behavior is deeply concerned with the environment. It looks at things like person culture fit. How will an organization's value align with the company's culture? It also uses the scientific method. We don't just guess why an employee is unhappy. We use logical theory, empirical analysis, and investigation to find the truth. An essential concept here is the contingency approach. In organizational behavior, there are very few absolutes. What works in one situation might fail in another. Therefore, OV focuses on finding the best managerial action for a specific situation. It says it depends on the context. Have you ever noticed that the leadership style that works for a sports team might not work for a team of software engineers? That is the contingency approach in action. Organizational behavior uses a total system approach. It views the organization as a complex web. Everywhere variable affects every other variables. If you change the technology, it will affect the social system. If you change the structure, it will affect individual motivation. Furthermore, organizational behavior is normative and value centered. Unlike a positive science that just states facts, a normative science suggests how findings should be applied to get results that are acceptable to society. It is also humanistic and optimistic. It is based on the belief that people are inherently capable of being creative, productive, and independent if given the right environment and motivation. Interestingly, organizational behavior utilizes two kinds of logic. Objective logic involves reaching facts through data and empirical analysis. Subjective logic relies on intuitions, experience, gut feelings, and learning from stories or cases. Why do we need both? Because humans are not robots. Data can tell you that productivity is down, but subjective logic, the manager's experience and empathy, might tell you that the team is suffering from burnout. By combining both, organizational behavior provides a holistic view of the workplace. Recap: the nature of organizational behavior is diverse. It is a scientific, applied, and humanistic field that uses both data and intuitions to solve problems within a complex system. Why do we actually need OB? The need can be broken down into three main areas. First, understanding human behavior. We need to understand people at three levels: the individual level, and the interpersonal level, and the group level. Second, we need organizational behavior for controlling and directing human behavior. This involves the use of power, leadership, communication, and creating a positive organizational climate. Managers must be able to guide people towards the finish line. Third, we need organizational behavior for organizational adaptation. As the world changes, how do we get our people to change with it? Organizational behavior provides the tools to manage it and transition. Let's look closer at organizational adaptation. Organizations are dynamic entities. They don't exist in a bubble. Economic fluctuations, technological advancement, and shifting social expectations constantly reshape the environment. In such a world, adaptation is not just a bonus, it is essential for survival. Adaptation is the process of adjusting structure, strategies, and resources to respond to these external changes. The role of management is to guide the organization through this transition while maintaining stability. If an organization fails to adapt, it becomes obsolete. Can you think of a famous company that failed because it didn't adapt to new technology? Usually, the failure wasn't just the tech, it was the failure of the people and structure to change their behavior. The advantages of studying organizational behavior are numerous. First, it helps an individual understand themselves. By learning about personality and attitudes, you gain insight into your own professional behavior. Second, it helps managers get work done effectively. Third, it helps fulfill the psychological contract, the unwritten set of expectations between the employee and the employer. When this contract is respected, loyalty grows. Fourth, it helps develop job satisfaction. Fifth, it builds a motivating climate. A company is only as strong as the enthusiasm of its people. Organizational behavior also helps in building cordial industrial relations, reducing conflicts between labor and management in the field of marketing. It provides insights into consumer behavior by understanding the human psyche. Perhaps most important, it helps in predicting behavior. If you can predict how people will react to a new policy, you can implement it more successfully. Finally, it improves functional behavior, leading to higher productivity and efficiency, while reducing dysfunctional behavior like absenteeism, tardiness, and high employee turnover. When you reduce these negative factors, the entire organization thrives. We will conclude this lecture by examining the four primary goals of organizational behavior. The first goal is to describe behavior. This is the what, how do people act under different workplace conditions. We observe patterns in performance, attitudes, and interactions. By describing behavior, managers can use a common language to discuss workplace issues. It allows them to identify specific problems, such as a sudden rise in absenteeism or a drop in morale. Without an accurate description, you are just guessing. This provides the factual basis for every decision that follows. The second goal is to understand behavior. This is the why. While description tells us what is happening, understanding tells us the underlying causes. Is an employee unproductive because they lack motivation, or is it because organizational culture is toxic? If a manager only describes behavior but doesn't understand it, they will only address the symptoms. For example, giving a bonus to a frustrated employee might not work if the real problem is a lack of clear communication. By understanding the root cause, managers can find solutions that actually work. The third goal is to predict behavior. Based on our observation and our understanding of human dynamics, we should be able to anticipate how employees will act in the future. Which employees are likely to be the leaders of tomorrow? Which team might struggle with a new project? Predictive ability allows for preventive measures. If you know that a major restructuring will cause anxiety and resistance, you can provide extra support and training beforehand. This proactive approach helps maintain a positive work environment and avoids potential crises before they start. The final and most practical goal of organizational behavior is to control and influence behavior. Now, this doesn't mean rigid robotic control. It means shaping behavior in a positive, constructive way to meet organizational goals. Managers are responsible for outcomes. To reach those outcomes, they must guide human effort through leadership, motivation, and effective communication. By applying organizational behavior principles, they can transform a group of talented individuals into a high performing team. They can enhance collaboration and create an environment that supports both the success of a company and the growth of the individual. Dear learner, let's take a recap. The four goals of organizational behavior: describe, understand, predict, and control work together to turn human behavior from a mystery into a manageable and powerful asset for any organization. In this introductory lecture, we have covered a vast landscape. We defined the organization as a goal oriented social and structural system. We explored the characteristics that make an organization sound, from unity of command to flexibility. We moved into the field of organizational behavior, identifying it as an interdisciplinary applied science and focuses on the human side of the workplace. We discussed how organizational behavior helps us navigate a changing world and outlined its four primary goals. Remember, an organization is more than just building and balance sheet. It is a collection of human beings. Understanding their behavior is the key to professional success. In our next session, we will begin looking at the individual level of behavior in more details. Thank you for your attention. Dear learner, thank you for giving me your valuable time. And if you have any query, you can drop your concern in comment box. We will try our best to respond you. Thank you.